Alright everyone, welcome back. This is Mr. E again, and this is our Rhythm Lesson 3 video. This one is going to have a lot less in it, but it's covering an important topic, which are rest. But we know all the names of our notes, and basically each note has a rest equivalent. So if we think about our rhythm tree, started with our quarter note, and then let's go through our subdivision. So if we subdivide a quarter note and break it into two, we get 2/8 notes. Do one of those. We're just going to draw one here to kind of go through each one. So we got a 1/8 note. Remember, it just has the one flag on it instead of the barred across. If it's two, they'll hold hands together. The next subdivision of an 1/8 note is a 16th note. Now, if we go in the reverse of the subdivision by doubling the quarter note and tying it together, we get a half note. And if we double it and tie it together, also we get the half note, we get a whole note, which is a circle. And we'll do one more going this way. So if we if we break the 16th note in half, we get a 32nd note, which looks like a 16th note, but instead of 2 little flags, it has 3 flags. Now, so these are our notes. These tell us to play. Rest tell us to be silent. So rest equals silence. So performance-wise, all the rests sound the same. But when we clap and say these, we actually hold our hands together and then just move down where the beat is. That'll make a little bit more sense in a second. So let's go for what these look like. So our rest, we'll start with our quarter note. This one is the funkiest one. So it is essentially a Z. Start with our Z, and then that Z has a tail. That's all a quarter rest is. A Z with a tail. Like, you'll see people just kind of write it like this, as a squiggle sometimes too. Try not to do that. But it's a really funky shape. So it's a Z with a tail. 8th note makes a little more sense. It looks like a 7. But on the top of that 7 is a dot. So I drew the dot, and then I do my kind of funky 7. Make sure it's not a 7 like this. It's a 7 like this. So it's kind of bent in words. 16th note is similar to that. This is a 16th rest. We'll just add a little stem. So at 2 stems, both 16ths. The rest looks like this. 32nd, if you can guess what that looks like, it's simply down like that. Add 2 more, so it has 3 of those total. So that's our quarter rest, because it's the same as a quarter note. So a quarter note makes sound, a quarter rest doesn't make sound. 8th note makes sound, 8th note doesn't make sound. 16th note makes sound, 16th rest doesn't make sound. 32nd note makes sound, 32nd rest doesn't make sound. This is where it gets a little more funky. So let's go to our half rest. Half rest looks like this. And this box is filled in. I'll fill it in the best I can. It looks like a top hat. So how I like to remember that is half sounds kind of like hat. And then you have a whole rest, which is an upside down hat, or as I like to look at it, a hole in the ground. So a whole note, whole equals whole. So a half rest looks like a hat. Whole rest looks like a hole in the ground. Quarter note's this funky thing. It's a Z with a tail. And then we got eighth rest. They all looks kind of like sevens, and then they have little tails just like they have flags on this side. So if we remember the quarter note in 4/4, we're going to be thinking about all these in 4/4, gets one beat. So we perform that as ta, but we're going to put it in parentheses to note that it is silent. So when you write it, that's how you're going to write it below the note, is you're going to write it as ta in parentheses. So, but when you perform it, you don't say ta, you just go, make sense? You don't have to do that. Just so no clapping. Forget what I did there. It looks like this. Do, Eighth note looks similar to that. So it will be ta and then or D. This will make more sense once I go over to actually performing these, because rests don't make a lot of sense outside of performance. Same thing with this. It'll be takadimi. And one of those will be parentheses. So this would be ta, ah. All of that will be in parentheses though. And this would be ta, ah, long ta, all that in parentheses. I'm not going to do the 30-second note because we haven't talked about how to count 30-second notes yet. But I was just showing you guys how that looked like. All right. So, in practice, in performance, we're going to be in 4/4. What you guys should know by now is how much, what kind, or how many, what kind. How many, four, what kind, four means quarter note. So it'll be four quarter note beats in this measure. So let's make a really simple rhythm with our rest. So that's our quarter note. Let's use our quarter rest. So again, Z with a tail. Z with a tail. And that completes it, because this is going to be counted ta. That's a ta, but we don't say it. Ta. Ta, we don't say it. So that would sound like ta, ta. And you might say, well, that kind of looks like this. Because isn't that just two tas? And you would be right on that in the sense of the clapping sound. But the difference in performance is ta, ta. See, my ah continues on. Well, in this example here, it doesn't continue on. It goes ta, ta. We could also start doing things like this, where we now, so performing this wise, let's write those in. So we got ta, no sound, ta, ta, no sound, ta. So that would sound like this. Ta, 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 ta. So that's all fine and dandy. So that's how we're going to be writing those quarter rest in. Let's do some with a half and a whole rest. So again, we're on 4/4. We're going to do a whole rest, which is ta. And that will that whole measure will sound exactly like this. Yep, that's nothing. So when you perform it, we're just going to go 4 beats down like this. We're done. Half rest. Let's do something with a half rest. So we got a quarter note, and then it looks like a hat. Because half and hat. That performed. Let's write it in first. So we got ta, ta, silence. So that'd be ta, 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 ta. You can tell that I'm still giving these beats, but I'm giving it 2 beats. Just like I gave these each a beat, but I'm just doing a silent beat, which is our karate chop. Karate chop those rest. All right. Let's add in a couple more examples because we're going over a lot of different rests today. As I said, rests are all performed the exact same. It's just the difference is the length that you perform it. All right. So we're in 4/4. Let's do some 8th rest. So, 8th rest, we could do. So with the 8th note, if it was on the same beat, we'd usually have them connect hands. But with the 8th rest, they can't hold hands together. So that's 1 beat. Let's do it like this. Not give you too many rests at once, but. So, we still got to think of these in beats. So here's a beat. Here's a beat. Here's a beat. Here's a beat. So we have ta. Then we would go D here usually. But because it's silent, we'll put in parentheses. This ta is in parentheses. This would be D. Toddy. Ta. So when we perform that, it's going to be ta, di, da, di, ta. I know it's a little weird, but ta, di, ta, di, ta. You can think of that by going, okay, so we got ta, di, ta, di, ta, di, ta, di, ta, di, ta, ta, di, ta, di, ta. So when you're starting to count these, you can think of it also in the sense of like, let's just say these quietly so that we know we're still saying them, but we're just going to transfer that to our head. So it'll be ta, di, ta, di, ta, di, ta, 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 di, ta. And then it will transfer over quietly where we ta, di, ta, di, ta, ta, di, ta, di, ta. So we're going to have a lot of chance to work with these as we play instruments also, so this will start making a lot more sense. But this is the introduction to it. And this is how we're going to be thinking about it the entire time we are reading music. So, let's do one more example. If I get my pen to work today.
2 hours later.
So we're going to start off with our 16th rest. Remember, 2 flags. And then you can still connect beats within a beat though. So this will be ta, silence, and this is ka, di, mi. Then we'll do a tadi. And then we'll do the ta. So we usually say, so if we just said this without the rest, it would be takadimi tadi. Let's write those in. Takadimi tadi. Tadi. Ta. That's how we would kind of say it if we didn't say the rest. So takadimi tadi tadi ta. But now let's add the rest. So that ta is quiet. That ta is quiet. And let's whisper where it's in a parenthesis. So takadimi tadi di ta. Now let's keep those quiet. We have kadimi tadi di ta. Kadimi tadi di ta. As I said, you guys are going to have a lot of practice today just writing it in this way. And then I will have you guys perform an example, but I'm not going to have you create an example necessarily, since the beat structure can get a little confusing with composing with rest until you're really comfortable with reading rest. So you guys are going to write in beat structures, and then the last one you're going to write in the beat structure, and then with that you're going to then perform that for a video. So that's rest. Rests are just silence, but they look like we have all these new symbols to look like. And then with that, we also have our counting system where we're now omitting things we're saying, but we're saying in our head. We're saying it in our head, but we're omitting it when we perform it. And that's what it's going to sound like. And once you memorize what that sounds like, you don't necessarily have to think about omitting it in your head every time, or saying it in your head every time, but it actually really is helpful to do that. So even when I'm performing, I'm like thinking rest, I go ta, 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 rest, ta, rest, ta, rest, ta, rest. I might not say ta, but I'll say rest in my head. So I'll be like rest, ta, rest, ta, rest, ta, rest, ta, in my head to keep track of the beat going on. Because I go ta, 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 ta. It's a lot more difficult if you aren't filling that beat in with something. And we're filling it in with nothing. And that can your mind is not like that. So, thanks for being here with us, and you guys have a wonderful day.